Welcome. My name is Deirdre Dixon Gilbert, your host of Malpractice Diaries, MD, the secrets they keep.
Well, have you ever wondered what happens when you're out cold at the doctor's office? Well, one unsuspecting patient checked his smartphone after a routine procedure and discovered some nasty results that had nothing to do with his health. Here's ABC's Gio Benitez.
Listen closely.
Round and round they go, wheel of annoying patients it goes. Where to land, nobody knows.
That's the voice of a doctor, anesthesiologist Tiffany Ingham, before a routine colonoscopy at a Northern Virginia hospital in April 2013. Her patient used his phone to record post-op instructions, but he says he did not press stop before he went under, unknowingly capturing Ingham's cringeworthy conversation.
And really, after 5 minutes of talking to you in pre-op, I wanted to punch you in the face and man you up a little bit.
Putting his IV in, he's like, I always pass out when I look at them.
Well, why are you looking then, retard?
The patient filing a lawsuit anonymously. He's identified only as DB in court documents, claiming medical malpractice, in part because of this false diagnosis.
I'm going to mark hemorrhoids, even though we don't see them and probably won't. I'm just going to take a shot in the dark.
And defamation because of comments like these.
For irritation or something that none of us want to go look at, so just make sure you're gowned up.
Give me some lube on the floor.
You don't want you to accidentally rub up against it. Some syphilis on your arm or something.
That'll be bad.
Last week, a judge ordering the anesthesiologist and her practice to pay the patient $500,000 in damages. She's no longer working at that Virginia hospital. In fact, we don't know if she's working anywhere now. Her attorney has not returned our calls for comment, but on that tape, even Dr. Ingham recognizes she may have gone too far.
I feel bad. I shouldn't be so mean.
For Nightline, I'm Gio Benitez in New York.
Ethel Easter Dismuke moved to Houston in 2005, working as a police dispatcher. After her son went to college, she decided that she would go back to college and become a business owner. She opened her own business, Resurrection Aerobic Studio. Ethel was healthy, doing well, and enjoying life. As a small business owner, she didn't have a regular insurance and applied for her Gold Card. That's financial assistance for low-income residents. At that time, she had a general doctor who she wanted to keep. In 2015, Ethel began to have unbearable stomach pains, and after many tests, it was discovered that she had a hiatal hernia. She began having over 100 attacks in a 24-hour period. Ethel met with the doctor at Lyndon B. Johnson Hospital and was told that she would have to wait months before she would be able to have surgery. Ethel objected, and that is when the trouble began. Patient secretly records doctor while in surgery. Ethel Easter Dismuke is a patient advocate against medical malpractice. Her desire is to expose the dark and hidden side of a medical profession that at best is labeled malpractice, but could be described, in her opinion, criminal.
Well, you're about to meet a woman who says she knows exactly what was said about her during her hernia operation. Ethel Easter says she broke down and cried when the doctor told her she would have to wait 2 months before her hernia surgery could be scheduled at a county-operated hospital.
I was like, 2 months? I can't last for 2 months. I can't do this for 2 months. I'm terminally ill right now. I'm very, and he said, listen, and he got very abrupt. He said, well, who do you think you are? You're going to have to wait, just like everybody else.
The doctor's tone, Easter says, made her decide to tape record her surgery.
This is my natural hair. I had a weave at the time, which is braids, extensions. And when I put my hair up, I put the recorder right in my hair.
Soon after you hear Easter start to snore, Easter says the surgeon tells others in the OR what he thinks of her.
She's a handful. We've had some choice words from the clinic when we didn't book her case within 2 weeks. Really? Including having to call a lawyer and file a complaint. It doesn't seem like the thing to say to the person that's going to do your surgery. That's it.
Easter says some of the OR staff made disparaging remarks about her body. She says she's very self-conscious about her belly button. You can hear a nurse in the OR laughing about it. On the tape, you can hear a male staff member say to the anesthesiologist, "Precious, meet precious."
It was precious meat precious, as though I was this fat black woman.
Easter says you can hear some OR staff members talking about touching her and a reference to Bill Cosby. On the recording, Easter says one OR staff member refers to her as always the queen, and then the surgeon repeats the phrase and says he feels sorry for her husband.
When I heard the comments on the tape and I listened to them, I was shocked because I had no idea that doctors, professional doctors and anesthesiologists and nurses would carry themselves in this manner in an operating room.
Now, a spokesman for Harris Health System, which oversees the county-operated hospitals, declined comment citing patient confidentiality laws. In a letter sent to Easter, Harris Health System states, "We have used this opportunity to remind the OR staff and physicians to be mindful of their comments at all times." Reporting live from the newsroom, Randy Wallace, Fox 26 News.
Let's welcome Ethel to the show. How are you?
Good evening. How are you doing, Deidre?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. So
shalom, shalom, and thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Let's go ahead and let's get into the show. Ethel, can you please describe to us from your first meeting with the doctor at LBJ Hospital?
So LBJ is set up where they have, and I didn't know that at the time, some students from the university. So they start off with meeting you and getting you your test. And then on your final visit before your surgery, you actually meet with the person in charge. And that is where my incident started at that point.
Okay, so that was just your first meeting, right?
Okay, so what they did was I had a hiatal hernia. So they ran some tests. They had this tube go down my throat. And I took this test home and they discovered I had over 100 episodes, which is 100 stomach attacks within 24 hours. And so once I came back, they knew definitely that I was sick and that I needed surgery. So I met with the head, Mike Lang. I met with him. And that's where it started, where he had no bedside manners. He was nasty to me. He told me it would take 2 to 3 months for them to even give me this surgery. And then at that time, I started to cry because I was in a lot of pain, couldn't sleep at night. I had bruises on my stomach. And I said, listen, I can't wait 2 to 3 months for this. I'm very sick. And I started crying. And I said, I need the surgery to happen as soon as possible. Then he got really nasty with me. He started saying, no empathy. Who do you think you are? You're going to wait like everybody else. And he just went in on me. And so I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I started crying more. And then I went home and I discussed what had happened with my husband.
Okay. So a week passes and you are experiencing excruciating pain. Again, you go now to your routine doctor. And what, again, did they discover?
So I went to my routine doctor. And so I had an attack in his office. And he said, I'm very concerned about you. And also I was having some blood coming out of my urine. And so he went into the system because the Harris County, I had a gold card at the time. And so, and I think that's part of the reason too. I had a gold card, which is a government type of card. I had a business, but I didn't have any insurance. So they were giving me this gold card versus I ended up having to have the surgery redone, and I had insurance and I was able to go to Memorial Hermann and find out the surgery wasn't even done correctly. So I had to have the surgery done. But that doctor at the time, he looked in the Harris County system and he said, oh my God, I see notes in here from him saying that you were crying and that you were going to threaten him with the attorney, which was a lie. So then a lot of red flags went up with this guy's character because I never ever mentioned an attorney to this man.
Let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Medical malpractice is the third leading cause of death in America, but is a well-kept secret. The truth has been hidden for decades, and the medical community would have you believe that there are nothing but frivolous lawsuits destroying their world. There is no such thing as a frivolous lawsuit, but that's the fabricated story being told. 1.5 million people die from medical malpractice a year, and that's a secret. Thousands of medical malpractice suits hidden in a database, botched surgeries, wrong site surgeries, instruments left in bodies, drug and alcohol issues, falsified medical records are all kept secret. Tort reform is what is called, but it has been the secret ingredient to no accountability. Malpractice Diaries, MD, we tell the secrets they keep. No more silence. www.nmmaa.org. Sponsored by the National Medical Malpractice Advocacy Association.
Your surgery was finally scheduled. You're at home getting prepared for that day. What prompted you to put this recording in your hair?
Okay, so I went home that day, and then I was literally afraid at that point, because here I am having a man that's going to do surgery at some point on me who just lied, which to me was like a black ball in the system. And so at that point, I talked to my husband and I said, I'm going to put a recorder in my hair. So if something happens to me, you all know what has happened. Because at this time, I don't have any insurance. This is an expensive surgery. So I'm caught between a rock and a hard place at this time.
Okay. And so basically you're saying you talked to your husband, you were fearful from the conversation that you had with this particular doctor prior to this. And because he had been screaming at you and then he lied basically in his notes, you actually were prompted and you told your husband, look, I think I'm gonna have to put this recording in my hair.
Yes.
Okay, so your surgery is over and you ended up in the hospital ER 2 more times for treatment for an allergic reaction. You didn't know why you were having these problems. How did you find out actually what happened to you, and what did you actually find out?
So I stayed in the hospital for 1 day. I was itching. My arm was swelling up. I let the nurse know. Nothing was done about it. So I was released from the hospital. My whole body starts to swell at this point. Especially my right arm started swelling, which is where the IV went into. I'm allergic to penicillin. So they gave me Ancef, which is like the mother of penicillin. So at this point, I hadn't listened to the recorder because I didn't think nothing was going to come up on the recorder. So we hadn't even listened to the recorder. So I went to the ER and they told me you're having an allergic reaction. So they started doing sonograms of my arm to make sure there was no blood clots. They started giving me this like a cocktail to go ahead and get the infection down and sent me home with some steroids. So then I go home. And so at that time, I went to Memorial Hermann. So then I go home and I'm having trouble breathing. So I wake up again. My husband takes me back to the ER and my lungs were full with fluid at that time. So now, once I get back home again, I said, okay, we need to listen to the recorder. So at that time, I discovered what was done and what had happened to me. But it gets more interesting because it wasn't just that they gave me Ancef and penicillin. There were so many disgusting violations that we heard that we were appalled about. One was that they were talking on their cell phones, which is not even in sterile during the surgery. They were talking about my belly button. You had a female anesthesiologist saying, oh, look at her belly button. And they were horsing around saying, oh, they're the queen. And, oh, yeah, I feel sorry for her husband. Then you have this female anesthesiologist urologist also say after my surgery was done, said, "Do you think I should touch her?" And then another doctor says, "I thought about it, but I didn't, but we could take some pictures." So till this day, I don't know if pictures were taken. And then you had another female nurse interject and say, "You know what happened to Bill Cosby?" And so that male nurse also said, "Precious, meet Precious." And we know Precious is a racial slur. Basically, it was a movie out then called Precious, who was obese African-American female who was raped by her father. And so when you're talking about rape and touching me and pictures, all this conversation was going over on my body as I'm sitting there at a vulnerable state. One of my most vulnerable states is when I'm unconscious, and you're supposed to be helping me and treating me.
And you are unconscious. They don't know you have a video in your hair, and they're in there talking and on the phone and just having a good time, pretty much.
Yes, pretty much.
And you don't even know whether or not they did take pictures, but they did say it on this recording.
They talked about taking pictures. They talked about touching me. They made disparaging comments about my body. You know, my grandmother Ethel was a nurse, and that's a ministry to help somebody. They take a Hippocratic oath to help us and to take care of us. And so to hear them say those things, to hear this foolishness going over my body, I mean, it just makes me want to get sick to my stomach to this day when I speak of it.
Yeah, because we talk about that, and we've talked about that about this is not the first time that these types of behaviors are happening in these operating rooms where patients actually are having to put video recordings in their hair or, you know, on their bodies because they're afraid of these doctors and what they're doing. And when they come out, they're actually surprised that there is conversation and, you know, things going on that you wouldn't think that people would actually be doing in an operating room with your body open, you know, and just doing things and talking about you unprofessionally.
Well, so, I'm an advocate against medical malpractice. They call it medical malpractice, but really it's a crime. These are criminals. These are rapists. These are drug dealers. And so on my page that I have, doctors being held accountable, what I do is expose them. So we're not naive. So I was naive on that table thinking, okay, these people are treating me, then I'm fine and I'm going home. That is not the case. I'm showing videos of women being raped. I'm showing videos of them. It's about money and doctors being paid. There's organ harvesting. This isn't medical malpractice. This is criminals. These are criminals that's having surgery on us. These are pedophiles. Mm-hmm. These are rapists. And only by God's grace, by Yahweh's grace, is that I'm alive. Because anytime somebody puts something in your vein that you're allergic to, you're really not supposed to be here. And, you know, my heart goes out to you because your daughter was one of the people who didn't make it. And I did. And I advocate for it because I want everybody to be aware. I want people to make it. You can't even put video cameras, but I want audio in these surgeries so people can hear what's going on, because video would just cause a whole nother level of sickness and them looking at you and sexual pedophiles. So you couldn't even do the video part.
Right. And there is documentation or statistic data that actually talks about you know, doctors being pedophiles and rapists, you know, that was done years ago. And we were surprised that, you know, this data was definitely not even, you know, spoken about. We don't even know. Matter of fact, we have no earthly idea that when you go into these hospitals that, you know, these doctors actually have these problems. My next question would be, what do you think we need to have in our hospital operating rooms? I know you were saying audio. There are some state representatives, and there are a couple of people that I know. His name is Wade, who actually introduced Christine Sinitsky, who is a Wisconsin legislator leader. She actually introduced legislation for cameras in the operating room. You were saying audio, and why do you think audio is more? Why do you think audio would be better than a video?
Well, I think we should have audio so we definitely can hear the conversations and what's going on so people can stick to what they're supposed to be doing, which is our surgery. And maybe we can have a representative where they actually hire someone that go in there and sit and babysit these doctors and nurses. I think the video would cause another disruption because I've put things on my website of videos where they send off, where the doctors and nurses were taking videos and sending people private parts out, saying, look at his private part, or look at her private part. So even the video had become something that they were using as pedophiles.
And that's really hard to imagine that this stuff is going on in our hospital systems at this time. But this is a true, these are true stories. And this, again, is the reason for Malpractice Diaries, is so that we can tell these stories, because these are things that people need to know, people don't know. And I'm assuming that you probably, again, didn't know this doctor from anybody else, just like us. We trust, we believe, but we also,
these are pagan places. These are groups, just like that police force. And it takes a lot to penetrate them. But we've penetrated the police force by putting video cameras on them. And so as we see, we have a protest now going on about them killing our African-American people. The doctors are doing the same thing. They just haven't been exposed yet. And they're getting away with it. And I would say they're killing more people than the police officers were. And every time you look at this systemic racism, it's like you look at one piece, but the whole piece come up, because once I started digging and looking into this, we were used as guinea pigs, as women, for surgeries, and the slaves were used as guinea pigs. So it goes back to the slavery where we were never meant to be free. So why should we give them good medical treatment? They were never meant to be free. So why should we not shoot them on the streets or hunt them down like dogs? It all goes back to the United States of America, big, dark, nasty secret. And it's time to expose it. It's time for us to stop. And it's time for justice is served. We have a lot of African-American women who are dying just from childbirth.
Yes. And I understand exactly what you're saying. And so, again, having those things in those operating rooms would definitely be a start for us. But we know that we have a lot of pushback from any type of legislation or anything that relates to, exposing these people and their habits, because we're not talking about, as you said, the things that we're talking about, because when they talk about medical malpractice, they are actually just talking about some things that we're not even discussing. We're talking about things barbaric, disgusting, and we're talking about these people that allowed to practice medicine that should have no business in an operating room in the first place. So again, just thank you, Ethel, for taking the time out. We appreciate you. And again, give us that your Facebook page again, so that people can come to your page to look at the stories or to even, make a comment.
My Facebook page is Doctors Being Held Accountable, No More Silence. Also, I'm a part of Deidre's group, which is the Medical Malpractice. She's been very strategic in supporting and helping me. And so you want to start joining these groups and hearing these stories to know that you are not alone, and that we suffered at the hand of these doctors, and we're saying no more silence. And as we stick together and they hear more stories, a movement is going to take place and the movement is going to happen and they will be stopped.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Be blessed.
Christine Siniski, a Wisconsin state representative, introduced a bill for cameras in the operating room. The Wisconsin Hospital Association opposed the legislation, stating they didn't believe it would improve patient safety. In 2014, a pilot program at a Toronto hospital where all procedures by one group of surgeons were recorded or evaluated. The video feedback received stated that there was a reduce in the number of errors by 50%.
Tracking errors in the OR. It's a new push in Wisconsin to keep patients safe.
But a bill to put cameras in operating rooms is facing pushback.
The I-Team's Courtney Garish investigates if this is the best way to make surgery safer. Courtney.
George and Carol, it's round 2 for this bill. Last session, it didn't make it out of committee, but the lawmaker behind the surgical black box says she's in it for the long haul to protect patients. Married almost 55 years, Dennis Vollrath lost his wife Judy 2 months ago. He feels her death was ultimately caused by a mistake a surgeon made 16 years ago.
She lost all of her quality of life.
Judy had what was supposed to be a routine surgery on her large intestine back in 2001.
That's when things went bad, really bad.
Dennis tells us what followed were numerous trips to the ER, more surgeries, and endless hospital stays.
She was in such pain that she went into convulsions. I couldn't do anything.
Dennis says he couldn't get any answers.
It's an absolute brick wall. You cannot find out.
So you wish, looking back, that you had that camera in the operating room?
Well, it would have given me something to work with.
The surgical black box bill would give patients in Wisconsin that option.
I do believe that this is the future of our medical records.
Representative Christine Siniski drafted the bill. It lets any patient make a request for their surgery to be recorded, which would then be a permanent part of their medical records.
This is not about going after bad doctors or malpractice. It's just a way for families to actually get some closure and get some answers.
More than 200,000 Americans die each year from medical errors. 40% of those errors happen in the OR. But according to a government agency that helps improve patient care, Wisconsin was the top state in 2016 for quality health care. The Wisconsin Hospital Association says our state is on the right track and doesn't feel this bill would improve patient safety. Quote, WHA has a strong commitment to transparency in health care and does not believe cameras in the operating room would add to that commitment to transparency, and even worse, will create distractions for the patient care team.
We can make surgery safer.
Canadian surgeon Dr. Teodor Grancherov believes in cameras in the OR, but only as a teaching tool.
Our goal is to change the way we practice surgery.
In 2014, he started a pilot study at a Toronto hospital where all procedures by one group of surgeons were recorded and then evaluated.
The group of surgeons who received video feedback performed significantly better and were able to reduce the number of errors with 50%.
Dr. Grancherov says changes to create a system that's open and transparent have to come from within the surgical profession.
Keep in mind the end goal of it, which is to improve patient safety, not to create a new industry of malpractice litigation.
She gave up. She was in so much pain.
Dennis still doesn't have any answers when it comes to his wife. Her official cause of death was complications from an infection. He hopes there's a future for this bill so other families are not left in the dark. Dr. Grancherov's OR Black Box program is in several Toronto hospitals, and it's expanding, which will include a hospital in New York City sometime this year. And one issue he brought up with patients having access to recordings is privacy for the surgical team.
Thanks for tuning in to Malpractice Diaries, MD. We tell the stories they keep. Please make sure that you tune in next week, same time, same station, same Facebook page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel And we look forward to seeing you next week. See you soon.